party this weekend throughout the mainstream media. The cucumbers have been supersized. All those concerns about global warming, they have been forgotten as the air fills with smog from the thousands of wieners that are being grilled. Club Shay Shay, they have decided to take advantage of the celebration by opening early. The dancing queen Jackie Mahomes, he has been on stage for the past 18 or so hours, mesmerizing lonely men, dancing to the 90s classic Missing by Everything But the Girl. And I miss you in the Bud Bongo Parade. Normally, the mainstream media is filled with anger and bitterness, but yesterday, for the first time in years, it was nothing but smiles on the faces of deacons at Woke United Methodist and their pretend friends in the mainstream media. After the verdict was announced, New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg, he held a celebratory press conference with the media. Now, normally when I have seen him before, Alvin seems to be very angry. I mean, who wouldn't be? If my name was Alvin, I would be pissed off too. Yesterday afternoon, though, Alvin Bragg, he could not stop smiling. Really easy to tell when Alvin is happy. He has so much body positivity. When he smiles, it forces his eyes to close. If there was ever a doubt in your mind that the mainstream media is heavily biased, the celebration of the Trump verdict yesterday, it should remove all doubt. But if you're still doubtful, if you still think there is a chance that our media is actually honest, allow KC to demonstrate just how pathetic the woke media is. But before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. The celebration, it started around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. You know how most professional parties have a host that kicks off the event? Someone with unmatched charisma, someone who has the ability to captivate an audience and get them excited for the festivity of iniquity. Deacons at Woke United Methodist, they decided to try something a little different. Instead of hiring a host who had the ability to properly start the party, instead of hiring a host that could get cucumber lovers excited just by walking on stage, the deacons, they decided to hire someone from the Cemetery News Network, CNN, to kick off the celebration. Check it out for yourself. The disgrace to the orange race is found guilty on all charges. Woohoo! Yes, yes, yes. We have been covering Kaitlan Collins. Katie Roo! Katie Roo! We have been covering the Roo here on the channel since she was demoted to the primetime dump at CNN last summer. In all that time, I have never seen Kaitlan Collins smile. At Christmas, she dresses as the Grinch. Yesterday was the first time I have seen Katie Roo in a good mood. And look, she wasn't the only one. The wicked weave of the woke Joy Reid, our bundle of joy, she was also ecstatic. This is amazing! We will finally get to see the orange man in the orange jumpsuit. There is no way he can win this election from Rikers Island. Have you guys ever heard of projection? It's a term that's commonly used in the psychological community. Projection, it's when you are projecting your mood, you're projecting your status onto others. For example, let's assume for a second that I am a shit fuck. I'm angry at the world. I am bitter towards women because they find me repulsive. I'm 46 years old and I spend Friday nights lonely spanking the winker. Due to my constant state of loneliness and bitterness, I'm going to project those feelings onto the people closest to me. In this case, it would be my emotional support shovel. My inside sources tell me Joy Reid, she's a lonely woman. Most nights, it's just her and her emotional support broom, not to be confused with her climate-friendly broom that she rides to work every morning. Last night, Joy Reid, she decided to project those painful feelings of loneliness onto Donald Trump. Watch for yourself.
There's a loneliness to Donald Trump. We were chatting about it in the break. He faced probably his greatest humiliation today without his family. I'm not sure if any of them were in the courthouse when he was found guilty. And as he's hearing, I'm thinking 34 counts, he's hearing them over and over, and they were so dramatic for us to hear. He heard those by himself. He might be the loneliest man in the world.
What the hell was she even talking about? Seriously, what was she talking about? Joy Reid claimed, "It was so traumatic hearing those charges read out loud. I know it had to be traumatic for the Trumper, and he went through it without his family. He was all alone. Oh, I feel so bad for him." Oh. I don't know if Joy Reid knows this, but the only people taking this trial seriously are working in the mainstream media. No one else cares. Last night, my inbox was filled with people asking me what I thought about the Trump verdict. Truth is, I don't. I don't think about it. Let's just look at this objectively for a second. I am not a lawyer. I have no knowledge on how the law works. The only thing I know about criminal law is that when you are pulled over after consuming a few beverages, the answer is always no. Will you take this breathalyzer? No. Will you agree to a field sobriety test? No. That is the extent of my knowledge in criminal law. From what I understand, though, about this trial, Donald Trump was charged with falsifying business records. Basically, he was charged with giving Stormy Daniels money to keep her quiet, to shut the hell up. Now, it would be one thing if justice in New York City was blind. It would be one thing if other politicians were held to the same standard. Yesterday, Alvin Bragg, he claimed that he filed charges against the Trumper because we enforced the law in New York City. Oh, really? Then let me ask you something, Al. How come charges were never filed against Eliot Spitzer? Remember that doofus? Back in 2008, Eliot Spitzer, he was accused of being a client at a high-end escort service. At the time, I think he was also either Attorney General or the Governor of New York. According to the media at the time, he spent over $80,000 over several years with this escort service. Now, last I checked, that was illegal in New York. Guess how many charges were filed against Eliot Spitzer? Just take a wild guess. None. Guess which political party Eliot Spitzer was affiliated with? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a D and ends with rat. The embarrassing media coverage, it wasn't specific to MSNBC. The huge embarrassing failures at CNN, they also joined in the celebration. This party was so wild, it was still going on at 6 o'clock this morning. Even though no one is watching, CNN continues to air CNN This Morning, a captivating show that has buried the mainstream media careers of dozens of people since its inception. This show used to be hosted by Donnie and his Lemons. Before she was demoted to prime time, Katie Rue Collins, she was also on this show. CNN This Morning. It is now being hosted by a lady that no one has ever heard of before. I didn't bother to look up her name and identity because honestly, I didn't think anyone cared. This unknown woman, she was joined by a group of 5 other unknowns. If we were playing a drinking game and you had to drink every time CNN featured a recognizable face, we would all be sober. After hours and hours of celebrating, this panel of unknowns, they decided to produce what they thought was a comedic segment. They were giggling, they were laughing. The segment was filled with jokes that wouldn't make a deaf man laugh. Watch for yourself.
I thank you for inviting me to Republican family Thanksgiving dinner here. This has been quite enjoyable to be a fly on the wall for. One of the things that any judge will consider in deciding a sentence is, number one, the crime itself and what's the statutory maximum for the crime. Here it's 4 years in prison and I believe a $5,000 fine. The odds of Donald Trump going to prison at all, I think, are pretty slim. He'd probably end up getting probation in some way. He could be sent to prison, and we can talk about that.
I would just say from a political
quick last word,
from a political standpoint, the pearl clutching amongst Republicans about the idea that he would go to jail from the people who were cheering Donald Trump's lock her up chant in 2016 is a little rich, I would say. It's a little rich.
So funny. This is mainstream media coverage in 2024. Is it any wonder? Why trust and viewership in most of the mainstream media is at all-time lows? Tomorrow, probably going to talk about the record low ratings that CNN set this month. That segment, it is one of the reasons no one is watching CNN. Towards the end of the clip, one of the unknowns attempted to make a joke about Trump supporters wanting Hillary Clinton prosecuted in 2016 for all those mysterious emails. They were chanting, "Lock her up. It's so ironic. Now the object of their devotion, he will be locked up." As I was watching media coverage of the verdict last night, I suddenly realized why John Biden is running a campaign based in fear. I suddenly realized why the mainstream media is so afraid of another Trump presidency. John Biden, he is trying to scare people into voting for another 4 years of disaster. His wife, pretend Dr. Jill, she's framing this election as good versus evil. Now, of course, she is partially right. I just don't think she realizes that there's a lot of people who don't think that she's on the right side of that narrative. They are trying to convince people that John Biden is the better choice of two bad choices. They are trying to create fear, but I think they are the ones who are actually afraid. It's another case of projection. John Biden, his pretend friends in the mainstream media, they are projecting their fear onto us. When he was running in 2016, the Trumper, one of his campaign promises, I guess, was investigating Hillary Clinton. Once he was elected, he decided to let Hill slide. Why? Maybe there wasn't enough evidence, or maybe, just maybe, the Trumper was following an unwritten precedent. For decades, politicians, for the most part, have refused to go after each other criminally. Sure, they'll attack each other publicly, but unless they have done something egregiously criminal, for the most part, politicians, they don't go after themselves criminally. Now, I'm not talking about impeachment. I'm not talking about congressional hearings. I'm talking about criminal charges that could put them in jail. John Biden, he has broken that precedent. If Trump gets elected, it wouldn't surprise me if he spent all 4 years investigating alleged corruption. I think they know that Trump is going to be out for revenge. He is coming back with a vengeance if he gets elected. The media, they're not stupid. They see the polls. They see Trump's website crashing yesterday after being flooded with donations. They know these trials have backfired and are actually helping the Trumper. They are hoping he will be in prison, so it's not possible for him to get elected. At this point, though, I don't know if that would even convince people not to vote for Trump. How ironic would it be if Trump was sitting in jail, he ends up winning the election, and the first decision he makes as president is to pardon himself? I don't know if that's even possible or legal, but it damn sure would be ironic. But anyway, give me your thoughts on this. Media, they cannot contain their bias as they celebrate the guilty verdict of the Trumper. If you want to attend the celebration, it will be going on all weekend. Me personally, I'm not interested. Do you think voters really care about this verdict? Will this guilty verdict have a negative impact on Trump during the election? Or do you think it will make people want to support him more? You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.